Hi viewers, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to the FreeCAD Curves Workbench mini series. And today we're going to be carrying on with part 3, and in this part we are looking at the join curves tool. So we touched upon this in our previous video, and I used it to extract out this edge here using the join curves tool, and that edge is sitting there. And if we hide all the rest, we can see that's sitting there nicely. So if I jump over to my part, and say if I was making something like a barrier to stop a lens falling out of this camera, I can use the 2D offset, and we can make this into a skin. So we can go inwards, and I'm using a minus value. I'm going to say 1mm. And we're going to fill that offset, okay that, and extrude that out by, let's keep it 10mm. But first we must select it and extrude that out 10mm, and there we go. So that will fit inside that camera there, stop the lens from falling out. I also used it to make a NURBS surface, so if I come out of here and select the Curves Workbench and select this part and this part, use the joins tool to pull that out, and then select this part, do the same. And then we'll select this part, pull that out, and this part, and do the same. Then we've got a number of curves here that we can use to create a NURBS surface with. So let's just hide that and that one there. So these are all edges. So you can see what that looks like. So what we can do is make a ruled surface against these two in the part. Click on the ruled surface. And then we've got these two curves here. So you can see these two curves that we can deform that surface against. And we can do that via the Curves Workbench. Click one arc, hold down Control, click the other, and click the ruled surface. And sweep profiles on 2 rails like so, and then use that sweep which is over here, so click on that sweep, and then using the approximating points to NURBS curved surface, we actually create our surface like that. If we bring back the cut, we can see how that conforms to that surface now. We can actually extract out these surfaces by using the surface tool here, so extract subshape if we so desire, but this means that we could have used the whole of this along here to extract out a shape and made something different. What I'm going to do now is show you the other practical examples that we can use the join curves for. If you like this video, please hit a like and also subscribe to the channel. I also have a Ko-Fi site where you can actually donate to my contributions to the community, and that's at ko-fi.com/mang0. So the join curves tool in the Curves Workbench allows you to convert any line or any edge into a B-spline, and that includes multiple edges. For instance, if we go to the sketcher and create an edge in here, so I'm going to create a sketch along the XY plane, and even if I used a number of B-splines, and we'll attach those together, and arcs for instance, and that's end with a line, then all of this will be converted to a B-spline. when using the Join Curves tool in the Curves Workbench. And as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 edges highlighted in yellow. If I select all those edges by clicking on the sketch, so they all go green, and using the Join Curves tool there, then that will become one edge. So it's one single B-spline. And we can see that if we go back to the sketcher, we'll go to the draft first and convert that to a sketch, we'll be able to see the B-spline in there. So we'll just convert that to a sketch. Now if I double click on that sketch, you can see we've got a B-spline. Let's remove that. So how's this useful? So if we're using the sketcher and we're creating something like a loft or an extrude, we can actually smooth out the faces of our loft. For example, let me create a sketch in here. And if I was doing something like a guitar or something like a guitar shape, so I would use 2 circles, one slightly larger than the other, and then use an arc between those. And make that arc tangent. And the same on this side. And then create another arc on the other side. Again using tangency. So we've got our guitar shape there. Now use the trim tool and we'll trim away these two. I'm just going to make sure that everything's connected, which is fine. Control Z, so we'll go back to that. I'm not going to worry about constraints. If I close this and go to my part or part design, wherever I want to use this, and we'll do a extrude on that. Hit OK. You'll see that we've got a number of faces here and a number of edges that run around this. So it'll be the same on the other side. Like so. So how do we smooth that out? So if I had something a lot more complex, it will make a lot more faces. If I also did a loft with this, then these edges will also follow. So how do we sort that out? Well, let's get rid of that extrude and go back to the sketch. We can take that sketch, jump to the Curves Workbench, and then use that sketch by clicking on it. So all edges are selected. Use the Join Curves tool, like so. Use that Join Curves now in our part or part design. Extrude or pad that up. Okay, that. And as you can see, we've got one face that runs all the way around there. And we can do such things as our chamfers on there and fillets. Set that face, do a small chamfer on there of 0.5. A small fillet on there of 0.5, sorry. And then if we ever want to change that, we can come into the sketch because the join curve and the sketch are linked, and we can change this to what we desire. So for instance, if I bring this down to a small shape, close that, that's actually changed that shape, and it's kept the number of faces. So this comes into its own with the lofts. So if we do a sketcher and make a sketch element on here, simple sketch element, and create something that has a number of faces. So I'm just going to use a slot in there. Just remove the equality and remove the vertical constraint and just change that slightly. So that'll do. So that's created a number of faces there. I mean, it's only 4 faces that we have on here, but it's enough for our demonstration. See, when you're looking at something a bit more complex, you'll have a lot more faces on there. If I duplicate that SketchUp now, so I'm pressing Control C, Control V a number of times, and I'm just going to move the position. So I'm in placement, position, and I'm just going to move this up to about 100, and the same for all the rest, 200, and this one 300, and I'm just going to move the bottom one along the X to about 50. So that will be off to the side, and I'm going to move this one here to -50, so the other way. So we've got a pattern there that we can loft through. If I go to the part and use loft in here, so clicking on the utility to loft, then we've got the sketches in here. If our sketches don't appear in here, then we've got a break in our geometry or a constraint that doesn't allow us to create a single line. So if we've got a point on line constraint in there, and use the trim tool to make that sketch closed, so it's one single sketch. I'm just going to add to the sketch now. So sketch as they appear, and create that as a solid, and hit OK. And there you can see how that's been lofted through those profiles, and we've got a number of faces going around the sides. So I'm going to delete that loft now. I'm going to show you how much cleaner it is if you take all these sketches and use the join tool. So curves, select those sketches, use the join curves tool. Those have converted all those sketches to join curves, so you can see them there. So I've multi-selected them. We can now go back to the part, select the utility to loft, and instead use the join curve. Create solid, OK, and you can see we've got a much cleaner loft through those profiles. Another example of where the joins curves can come in handy is when importing SVGs. So in this case, we're importing a very curvy SVG. So this is going to be my logo that I'm importing. So I'm going to demonstrate with that. So I've got to go File, Import, and my logo is here. So I've selected the SVG, and I've selected SVG as geometry. So this logo has been imported into Inkscape, and used the trace bitmap to actually trace out the bitmap. As you can see, it's quite hard to see at the moment, so I'm going to go through all these paths and downgrade them. And that means that if I go into the draft workbench and select a path and downgrade it by using the downgrade the selected object into simpler shapes, or we can go to the modification and downgrade, that will downgrade that to a wire. So I'm going to do that with every one of these. I can't multi-select these like so and downgrade them, because what will happen, it will downgrade it into one single object, which we don't want, and we lose all the other paths. So I'm going to Control Z that. So I need to do this one by one. The best idea is come in and look at the shortcut. So just hover over, and we see it's D and N. So I'm going to select that path and leave my mouse pointer there. Press D, and then press N. Click D, N, and just carry on. And you can see all those are being downgraded to a much simpler wire. So we've got all those now. What I'm going to do is extrude one of these. So at the moment we've got simple wires there. So I'll jump over into the part and pick one of these. Let's pick the J that's inside here. So go to model, and we're looking at, we'll find it, this one here, or the internals. Let's go for external, and I'm just going to hide that and select all of these and press the space bar. That will toggle the hidden to visible and the visible to hidden. So we just got that J coming through now. If I extrude that J, you can do this in the part design, doesn't matter, but you'll have to convert these to sketches first. If I extrude this J, you can see that we've got a number of faces because it's made up of a number of edges of the wires. Let's undo that, and this time let's take that J and we're going to go off to the Curves Workbench, and I'm going to convert that to a join curves. So I've got a single curve running all the way around that, a single B-spline. Let's jump back to the part and click on the join curve and extrude that. So I've got a much cleaner object now. Now the problem comes when we try to fillet or chamfer this. So if I try that with this, what will happen is we'll get an error. I'm going to select that edge, and I'm going to use the fillet of a radius 0.2. And what will happen is that will go into error. I'm just going to undo that. And the reason being is where the join is. So if we look around and we're trying to find the edge of that face, if I can find it, there it is there. So that's in a position that won't allow for a fillet. We need it about here. So fillet in here. What we can do is use basically the opposite of the join tool, and that's called the split. And what that allows us to do is just split it down into two. So I'm going to get rid of the extrude and bring back the join. And at the moment we can see where this is. It's just here. And we want to move that, or actually create another split in here. So we have two faces. And that will allow us to extrude and chamfer this out or fillet it out. So let's come over to the Curves Workbench. Let's select the J there. And this time, rather than joins curves, we're going to use the split curve. And you can see where that split that just there. And we've got two parts to that. So we're still simplifying our import. But what we're going to do is change where that edge sits. Now we can change where that edge sits by going to the split curve and double clicking it and pulling this down. So I'm going to pull it down to about here. And I'll just double click that again, and that takes effect. Now when we extrude this, go to part and click on our split curve this time and extrude. Okay, that extrudes fine. We still simplified the faces, but this time I can select the edges, so these two edges here, and use the chamfer or fillet, and I'm going to go for a 0.2 on this one. Hit enter, and you can see that's got a slight fillet on there. So let's give that a bit more. There we go. So that's filleted along there. So that's a way of simplifying your SVG imports. And if you can't fillet or chamfer them, you can go in there and move some of those edges into a more favourable position to allow for that fillet or chamfer. So as well as the join curves, we touched on the split curves as well. Now there's a number of different options in there. if we go in, and if I go back to that split curve, you can see a distance there and a values there. So I'm going to get rid of that fillet and that extrude and just bring that back. We can see those two parts there, 1 and 2. And we can control the distance. And you can see there's a vertex here that's moving around. So now we have 3. And we can enter values in this list as well. So 55%. And now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take those out. And now we're back to 1 and 2. So you have controls of where you want to place that edge. So when it's coming to filleting or chamfering, we can really control those edges and to allow us to chamfer and fillet our SVG imports with a lot more ease rather than resketching the whole lot. So I'm going to leave that with you now, and we're going to move on to the create a supporting plane for sketches in our next video. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to my site, and also I have a Ko-Fi site where you can actually donate a few pence or a few pounds, dollars, or whatever your currency is, and that's at ko-fi.com/mang0, and there you'll be able to help me fund my site, and all the money that I actually get from any funds will actually get pushed back into the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing. I'll see you next time.